The breaking point didn't happen all at once. That's what makes this story so terrifying. There was no single explosion, no one dramatic moment where everything shattered in plain sight. Instead, it was slow, quiet, a steady unraveling that most people didn't recognize until it was already too late. Scrappy had survived storms before, heartbreak, betrayal, public humiliation, industry drama that would have crushed lesser men. For years, he carried himself like someone built from steel, laughing through pain, brushing off losses, convincing the world that no matter what life threw at him, he would always stand back. But this time was different. This time, something inside him cracked, and once it did, the pieces began to fall faster than anyone could catch them. Fans are still struggling to process what followed. Disturbing reports began circulating quietly, at first whispers that Scrappy wasn't okay, that he had reached a place darker than anything he had faced before. People close to him started noticing the signs, the silence, the withdrawal, the energy that once filled every room, now replaced with an emptiness that felt heavy and permanent. Behind closed doors, the man everyone thought they knew was spiraling, and at the center of it all was one. Name Bambi. When she walked out of his life, she didn't just leave a relationship behind. She took the ground beneath his feet with her. Their love had always been intense, passionate, volatile, a constant cycle of arguments and reconciliations, heartbreak and hope. But this time there was no coming back together. This time it felt final, and Scrappy wasn't ready for that reality. Those closest to him say the shift was immediate. The laughter faded. The jokes stopped landing. His once vibrant presence dimmed like a light slowly losing power. Where there had once been confidence and charisma, there was now exhaustion, deep, bone-level exhaustion that no amount of sleep could fix. His social media told its own story. Gone were the upbeat posts and playful captions. In their place appeared silence, followed by messages that felt unsettling, almost like goodbye notes disguised as thoughts. Fans sensed something was wrong, even if they didn't yet understand how serious it was. Late one night, Scrappy reportedly confided in a close friend. "I don't know how to move forward," he admitted, his voice barely holding together. "Everything feels empty without her. Nothing makes sense anymore." Those words would haunt the people who heard them, because by then, the pain wasn't just emotional, it was consuming him from the inside out. Soon, the red flags became impossible to ignore. Scrappy stopped showing up, studio sessions were missed, important meetings were canceled without explanation, calls went unanswered. Messages were left on read or not opened at all. Friends who had known him for years began to worry. But even they didn't grasp how deep the darkness had grown. Then came the drinking, something he had sworn he'd never return to. What started as just a drink to take the edge off turned into something far more dangerous. Bottles began to pile up. Nights blurred into mornings. And the man who once prided himself on control was slowly losing it. One longtime friend, speaking anonymously, described the moment everything changed. "I went to check on him because something just felt off," the friend recalled. "And man, I didn't recognize him. The house was a mess. Blinds shut tight, empty bottles everywhere, no music, no laughter. Just silence and shadows." Scrappy looked exhausted physically, emotionally, spiritually. He kept saying, "I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm tired, bro. I just want the pain to stop." Those weren't dramatic words. They were desperate ones, the kind that should never be ignored as days passed. Concern turned into fear. His family felt it first. Mama D's mother, his anchor, was among the first to publicly acknowledge that something was terribly wrong. During an emotional Instagram Live, her voice cracked as she spoke directly to fans. "Y'all, I need y'all to lift my baby up," she pleaded. "I don't know what's going on, but he ain't himself. I ain't never seen him this low before. I'm scared for him, real scared. That moment sent shockwaves through his fan base. Because if Mama D was scared, then this wasn't just drama, this was real. Behind the scenes, Scrappy was slipping further away. The messages he posted grew darker. One Instagram story in particular stopped people cold, a black screen, white text, 5 words that hit like a punch to the chest. What's the point of it all? Within minutes, his DMs flooded with messages of love and concern. Fans begged him to stay strong. Friends tried calling. Family members reached out repeatedly. But what no one knew was that by then, things were already far worse than they imagined. Scrappy wasn't just hurting, he was losing hope. Inside his own mind, he replayed every argument, every mistake, every moment he felt he wasn't enough, no matter how many people told him he mattered. It was like their words couldn't reach him. One source later revealed he felt like a failure, like nothing he did was ever enough. And once that thought took root, it wouldn't let go. The spiral accelerated. He isolated himself completely. Blinds stayed shut. Phone turned off. The outside world faded into something distant and unreal. Friends tried stopping by, but often left without seeing him. Messages went unanswered for hours, then days, and then came the night that changed everything. A quiet evening, too quiet, Scrappy locked himself inside his home and stopped responding. Altogether, calls went straight to voicemail. Texts went unread. The silence felt wrong heavy in a way that made people's stomachs drop. His closest friends drove to his house. Panic rising with every mile. They knocked, then pounded, then shouted his name. Nothing, no footsteps, no response, just silence behind the walls. One friend later described the moment. We were yelling his name, banging on the door. I swear my heart was about to explode. We had no idea what was happening inside. Finally, with dread settling in, they made the hardest decision of their lives. They called for help when authorities and paramedics arrived. They forced their way inside. What they found froze everyone in place. Scrappy lay unconscious on the floor, his body limp. Pills scattered around him. A bottle of liquor overturned on the table. It was clear this wasn't an accident. This was a cry for help. Medics moved fast, working desperately to stabilize him as his friends stood frozen, tears streaming, praying this wouldn't be the end. It didn't feel real. One of them later said, "We kept calling his name, hoping he'd open his eyes. We were just praying he'd make it." As he was rushed to the hospital, the news broke like wildfire. Social media exploded. Fans around the world held their breath, flooding timelines with prayers and messages of love. Hashtags trended. Rumors spread. Fear took over. And one question echoed louder than all the rest. Would Scrappy survive the night? 'Cause if he didn't, the world would be losing another star far too soon. Between life and LOSDs. Ambulance lights cut through the night like a warning. Red, blue, red again, dot inside. Scrappy's body lay motionless, strapped to a gurney as paramedics worked with ruthless precision. Oxygen mask secured, 4 lines inserted. Voices sharp and urgent, calling out vitals, dosages, timestamps. Every second mattered. Outside, friends followed in stunned silence, their minds replaying the image they couldn't unsee. Scrappy on the floor, lifeless, surrounded by the evidence of a pain he had been hiding too. Well, no one spoke. No one spoke. Because no one knew what to say when the unthinkable suddenly felt real. At the hospital, doors burst open. Medical staff rushed him down sterile hallways under harsh fluorescent lights. The smell of antiseptic mixed with panic. Clipboards snapped. Orders were shouted. Curtains drawn. And just like that, Scrappy disappeared behind emergency room doors. For those left behind, time stopped. Phones vibrated nonstop as word spread. Text messages turned into frantic calls. Calls turned into prayers. The news leaked within minutes, and the internet did what it always does, exploded. Please let him be okay, not Scrappy. Please. praying for him and his family. But beneath the love and concern, darker questions surfaced. How bad was it? Doctors soon realized the severity of the situation. Reports suggested Scrappy had ingested a dangerous combination of substances enough to push his body to its limits. His breathing was unstable, his heart rate erratic. This wasn't just a scare. This was a fight for survival. Inside the ER medical, staff worked tirelessly to stabilize him, pumping fluids, monitoring brain activity, watching for signs of organ failure. Each update came with caution. He's critical. The next few hours are crucial. We're doing everything we can. Outside the room, his loved ones waited. Mama D arrived not long after. She didn't walk into the hospital, she rushed, fear etched into every line of her face. The strong, outspoken woman fans knew was gone in that moment. What remained was a mother confronting her worst nightmare. She grabbed the first doctor she saw. "That's my son," she said, her voice trembling. "Tell me what's happening, please." When she was finally allowed into the room, the sight shattered her. Scrappy lay there, pale and unresponsive. Machines surrounding him, beeping steadily, like a reminder that he was still holding on barely. She took his hand, gripping it as if letting go might cause him to slip away forever. "Baby, I'm here," she whispered, tears streaming. "You've gotta fight, you hear me? Mama needs you." Outside that room, the world waited. Social media became a war zone of emotions. Messages of love clashed with speculation. Some fans pleaded for privacy. Others demanded answers. And then came the blame. Where was Bambi? How could this happen? Someone should have seen the signs. Finger pointing spread like wildfire, turning pain into anger. Meanwhile, Bambi was learning the news like everyone else through a phone that wouldn't stop ringing. Sources say she was devastated. Despite their rocky history, despite the arguments and the distance, this was never something she wanted. The idea that Scrappy had reached such a breaking point hit her hard, an insider revealed. She was in complete shock. She never stopped caring, the source said. She just didn't know how to love him without losing herself. Still, she stayed silent publicly, and that silence only fueled the storm. Back at the hospital, the hours dragged on. Doctors monitored Scrappy closely, adjusting treatments, watching for any sign that his body might give out or recover. His friends paced the waiting room, replaying every conversation they wished they'd handled differently. Why didn't I push harder? Why didn't I stay longer? What if we were already too late? Time stretched painfully then. Sometime before dawn, a subtle change occurred. A monitor beeped differently. A nurse paused. A doctor leaned in closer. Scrappy's vitals shifted just slightly, but enough to spark cautious hope. "He's responding," a doctor said quietly. "But we're not out of the woods yet." For Mama D, it felt like breathing again after hours underwater. She refused to leave his side. Even when exhaustion pulled at her body, she sat there, praying, bargaining with God, promising anything if only her son would wake up. As the sun rose outside, the waiting room grew heavier. News crews gathered, fans refreshed, timelines obsessively inside the hospital. It was still a race against time. Scrappy drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind trapped between memory and darkness. Flashes of his life played behind closed eyes, laughing with friends, performing on stage. Arguments with Bambi that never fully healed. Then came the darker images. Mama D's terrified face, Diamond screaming his name, paramedics shouting, and a black void that threatened to pull him under completely when he finally stirred. It was barely noticeable. A twitch of his fingers, a shallow breath, a faint groan. Mama D noticed first. Her heart nearly stopped. "Baby," she whispered. "Scrappy." His eyes fluttered but didn't fully open. Still, it was enough. Doctors rushed in, adjusting machines, exchanging looks that carried guarded optimism. "He's waking up," one said, slowly, Relief washed over the room, but it was fragile. Because surviving the night was only the beginning, Scrappy's body was weak, drained by the trauma. But the physical recovery paled in comparison to what waited ahead. The emotional reckoning when he finally opened his eyes fully. Confusion clouded his expression. Tubes, machines, his mother's tear-streaked face hovering above him. Mama? He, Croaked. She broke down. You scared me, she said through sobs. You scared all of us. Scrappy swallowed hard, the weight of what he'd done crashing down on him. Memories returned in fragments. The loneliness, the call, the silence. That followed. I didn't mean to, he murmured, voice barely audible. Mama D squeezed his hand. I know, she said softly, but you can't do this alone anymore. Doctors later explained the reality bluntly. If Scrappy pulled through completely, the road ahead would be long. Therapy, treatment, hard conversations he'd spent months avoiding. There would be no quick fix, and everyone knew it. The industry responded swiftly. Artists, friends, even rivals took to their platforms, urging people to check on one another. Mental health discussions surged. Messages poured in reminding the world that strength doesn't mean silence, but behind the hashtags and statements. One question lingered. Would Scrappy face the pain that brought him here? Or would he retreat back into it once the crisis faded? As night fell again, the hospital room quieted. Machines hummed softly. Scrappy stared at the ceiling, awake now, his thoughts heavier than ever. He was alive, but alive didn't mean healed. And somewhere beyond those walls, a reckoning was coming, one involving Bambi, his past, and a future. He no longer knew how to imagine. The aftermath surviving didn't feel like winning. That truth settled over Scrappy slowly. It's like fog creeping in after a storm. His body had been stabilized, the machines had quieted. Doctors spoke in calmer tones. From the outside, it looked like the crisis had passed. Inside him, it hadn't. He lay awake in the hospital bed long after visiting hours ended, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had led him there. Every ignored call, every drink he shouldn't have poured. Every moment he told himself he was fine when he wasn't even close. The room felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that forces thoughts to get louder. Scrappy had spent his entire life pushing through pain. He had learned early that vulnerability was dangerous, that admitting weakness invited judgment. So he buried it, wrapped it in humor, distracted himself with work, with noise, with people. But once Bambi left, the distractions stopped working. And now there was nowhere left to hide. Outside the hospital, the narrative had taken on a life of its own. Headlines spread fast, social. Media dissected every detail. Fans argued in comment sections like they were witnesses to something they barely understood. Some showed compassion. Others demanded answers. And too many looked for someone to blame. Bambi's name trended alongside his. Where was she? How could she leave him like that? She did this. The accusations grew louder by the hour. Bambi saw it all. From her phone. From her TV. From people who had no idea what their relationship had really been like. Strangers reduced years of complicated love into simple villains and victims. It crushed her because the truth was uglier than any headline. She hadn't left because she didn't care. She left because staying was destroying them both. Every argument chipped away at her sense of self. Every reconciliation came with promises that never fully held. Still, knowing that didn't stop the guilt. Inside the hospital, Scrappy began. Meeting with a therapist at first, he resisted. He joked. Deflected. Shrugged off questions with half smiles and practiced lines. I'm good. Just had a rough patch. But the therapist didn't push. She waited, and eventually. The walls cracked. One afternoon, after a long silence, Scrappy finally spoke. I feel like I failed, he admitted, voice low. Not just her, everybody. He talked about waking up every day feeling empty, about the pressure to always be on, about how losing Bambi felt like losing the last person who saw him without the armor. I didn't want to die, he confessed quietly. I just didn't want to feel like this anymore. That sentence hung heavy in the room because it was the truth, Mama. Dee watched these changes closely. She had seen her son at his strongest stand, now at his weakest. Pretending this was just a bad moment wasn't an option anymore. She sat him down. One evening, her voice gentle but firm. "Baby, you can't keep pretending nothing's wrong," she said. "This almost took you from me." Scrappy looked away, eyes burning. "I didn't mean to scare you, I know," she replied. "But intentions don't erase consequences." She reminded him of everything he still had: family, friends, a future that wasn't finished yet. But she also made something clear: all alone wouldn't save him. Healing would take work. Meanwhile, the pressure outside the hospital intensified. Reporters lingered, fans demanded statements. Industry voices weighed in. Mental health discussions surged, so did invasive speculation. Some people treated Scrappy's pain like entertainment, and that hurt more than he expected. He stopped scrolling, stopped reading comments, focused inward. For the first time in years, he had no distractions left, just himself. Days passed, then came the moment no one was prepared for. The door to his hospital room opened quietly. Scrappy looked up, and there she was. Bambi. She stood just inside the doorway, hesitant, unsure whether she was welcome. The room felt instantly smaller, heavier. Years of love and damage filled the silence between them. Neither spoke at first. Finally, Scrappy broke it. "Why are you here?" His voice wasn't angry, it was tired. Bambi took a breath. "I heard what happened," she said softly, "and I couldn't not come." He let out a bitter laugh. "Didn't stop you from leaving?" Her expression tightened, but she didn't turn away. "I didn't leave because I didn't love you," she said. "I left because we were hurting each other." Those words landed hard. Scrappy clenched his jaw. "I needed you." "I know," she replied, "and I needed peace." Silence again. Mama D cleared her throat gently, sensing the weight of the moment. "If you care about him," she said to Bambi, "then help him heal. Not by fixing him, but by letting him do the work." Bambi nodded slowly. "I can't promise anything," she said, "but I don't want him to feel alone." That wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't a fairy tale moment, but it was honest. After Bambi left, Scrappy lay awake for hours. Her words replayed in his head. Love isn't supposed to be toxic. For the first time, he didn't fight that truth. He didn't want to blame her anymore. He didn't want to blame. He just wanted the pain to stop owning him. Therapy continued. Conversations got harder. Scrappy confronted parts of himself he had ignored for years: his fear of abandonment, his reliance on external validation, the way he tied his worth to being wanted. Healing wasn't dramatic, it was slow, uncomfortable, and relentless. But something changed. A flicker of clarity. He began to understand that surviving wasn't enough. If he didn't rebuild differently, he would end up back in the same darkness as the days went on. Support poured in, not the loud kind, but the steady kind. Friends checked in. Industry peers sent quiet messages. People reminded him he mattered without demanding anything in return. For the first time, Scrappy believed them. Not fully, but enough. Still, one question lingered in his mind, heavy and unresolved. Could he learn to live without Bambi? Or would his heart always circle back to the love that nearly destroyed him? That answer hadn't come yet, but it was coming after. The STO-REM recovery didn't arrive with relief. It arrived with silence, not the suffocating silence that once haunted Scrappy's nights, but a quieter, more honest kind. The kind that forces you to sit with yourself when the chaos fades and the adrenaline wears off. The hospital room no longer felt like a battleground. Machines beeped less frequently. Nurses spoke softly. Visitors came and went in smaller numbers. The world outside had moved on to the next headline. Scrappy hadn't. He sat by the window one morning, watching the sun climb slowly over the city, realizing how close he had come to never seeing that light again. The weight of it pressed against his chest, not as panic, but as awareness. He was still here, and that came with responsibility. Therapy sessions continued. No longer optional, no longer resisted. Scrappy stopped pretending he had answers. He stopped trying to sound strong. When asked how he felt, he didn't joke anymore. "I'm scared," he admitted one day. "Scared I'll fall back into it. Scared I won't recognize myself without the pain." The therapist nodded. "That fear is part of healing," she said, "but fear doesn't get to drive anymore." That idea stuck with him. For years, fear had been at the center of everything: fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of being forgotten. He had chased love like oxygen, believing without it he would suffocate. Now he was learning something harder. Love wasn't supposed to be survival. It was supposed to be shared. Mama D noticed the shift before anyone else. Her son was quieter, but more present, less reactive, more honest. When she visited, they didn't talk around things anymore. They talked through them. "I don't want to lose you again," she told him one evening, her voice steady but heavy. "You won't," Scrappy replied. "Not like that." Those words weren't a promise. They were a commitment. Outside the hospital, the noise never fully stopped. Fans speculated about reconciliation. Blogs debated whether Bambi would return. Every small update became fuel for theories. But inside, Scrappy began drawing boundaries. He limited interviews, declined statements, focused on healing instead of explaining himself to the world. For the first time in his career, he chose privacy over performance, and that choice changed him. The day he was discharged came quietly. No cameras, no dramatic exits, just a bag over his shoulder, Mama D at his side, and a long road ahead. Home felt unfamiliar at first. The same walls, the same rooms, but the energy was different. The bottles were gone. The blinds were open. Light poured in where darkness once lived. Still, memories lingered, especially at night. That was when Bambi returned to his thoughts. Not the arguments, not the chaos, but the early days, the laughter. The way she once felt like home. Weeks passed before they spoke. Again, not face to face, not emotionally charged, just a message. "How are you holding up?" Scrappy stared at the screen for a long time. Before responding, "I'm trying," he typed. For real this time. They met later, quietly. Away from attention, no expectations, no rehearsed speeches, just two people who had loved each other deeply and hurt each other just as deeply. Bambi looked different, calmer, stronger, Scrappy noticed, and instead of resentment, he felt something else. Respect. "I'm glad you're okay," she said. "I really am." He nodded. "I didn't realize how much I was losing myself," he admitted. "I thought holding on was love. And letting go felt like failure." She replied. They sat in that truth. No accusations, no rewriting history, just honesty. "I don't know what the future looks like," Bambi said finally, "but I know this: we can't go back to who we were." Scrappy understood. For the first time, truly understood. "Maybe that's not a bad thing," he said. It wasn't closure in the way movies sell it. There was no dramatic embrace, no promises, but there was peace, and sometimes peace is louder than love. As months went by, Scrappy continued rebuilding slowly, deliberately. He leaned into therapy, reconnected with music without using it as escape, spoke openly with friends instead of hiding behind humor. The pain didn't vanish, but it stopped controlling. Humor fans noticed the change, not in flashy ways, but in the way he spoke, the way he paused, the way he acknowledged struggle without glamorizing. And when he finally addressed what happened, he did it simply. "I didn't want to die," he said. "I wanted the pain to stop. And I learned the hard way that silence almost killed me." That message resonated because so many people recognized themselves in it. Scrappy's story stopped being about scandal. It became about survival, growth, and accountability. As for Bambi, she continued her own journey, separate, unentangled, still caring but no longer responsible for saving someone else, and Scrappy respected that. The final truth settled in quietly. Without ceremony, he might always love her, but he no longer needed her to live. That realization didn't erase the past, but it freed the future today. The question remains unanswered, maybe it always will be. Will Scrappy and Bambi ever reunite? Or was their love meant to teach, not last? What matters now is this: Scrappy chose to stay. He chose to heal, and he chose to live. And sometimes, that choice is the bravest ending of all. End of STOR. What do you think? Did Scrappy lose the love of his life, or did he find himself? Is there still hope for him and Bambi? Or is this the healthiest ending they could have? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to stay updated on all the real stories behind the headlines, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next.